Good morning, everyone. Suzanne Taylor-King here for a new edition of Unlock Your Way with STK. And today we are here with Philly guy, local to me, Gregory Jerome. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Really good. It's Friday. It's summer.
It's Friday.
Um,
It's the
and
summer.
you're here. So it's
Oh,
going to be a great
thank you.
conversation. It's going to be great. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, my name is Gregory Jerome. I am a fashion psychologist. I am also a workforce development counselor, facilitator. I am also a award-winning entrepreneur. I
Mhm.
am a Amazon #1 best-selling author as well.
Woohoo!
Yeah, just this year. So it's awesome. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah, and I'm a creative artist. That's who I am. Um,
Well, you are multi-passionate and multi-talented,
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
but it didn't start off that way. Can you tell us a little bit about your story into becoming who you are today?
Yeah. Just kind of a little bit of a backstory before I get into the life transition
Mhm.
story. Prior to the transition, I was a performing artist. I toured the U.S. 2 times over, opened up for national recording artists. I was a teaching touring artist as well. I went to different schools and taught enrichment programs. I had an after-school program that I taught K through sixth graders, elemental hip hop program, and I also did a creative writing course as well.
Wow.
So I was in that space, but also I was also in fashion. So I was an image consultant in the 9 to 5 world,
Wow.
and yeah, and there was a moment in life where there was a transition for me. I had relocated from Oklahoma City to Los Angeles, and at that point in time, I was trying to gain footing in that new space,
Mhm.
not having any relatives and friends, which is like my traditional thing because I move around a lot. And I was in a motorcycle wreck. I was actually working for a company called Joseph A. Bank as an image consultant, and at the point in time, I was there for like 5 months, and I was in a motorcycle wreck.
Mm.
The motorcycle wreck, um, I suffered post concussive syndrome. Uh, I was seeing a bone specialist, and I was also going to physical therapy. So during this time in Los Angeles, um, I was going through the transition of, in a sense, of like housing. We'll say
Mm.
housing because this
Mhm.
motorcycle wreck calls me to see a neuropsychologist during this time, and I was suffering headaches and migraines and things like that. And eventually, what ended up happening is I became homeless.
Mm.
Temporary disability wasn't enough to pay the rent in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and I was trying to figure out where the next chapter was going to be for me at that point. And I visited a few places, a few cities. I disguised my homelessness by calling it a family and friends tour because people knew that I toured, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the way I disguised it for me going to different cities and really living off of that temporary disability money for like hotels or like boutique hotels or like Airbnbs in a hostile environment, or
Mhm.
it was me going to see family and friends, like for real.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming to Philadelphia to visit my uncle who stays in Voorhees, New Jersey. And so he gave me a tour of Philadelphia, and it brought back memories of when I came here and performed at World Cafe and Tom Restaurant
Mm.
back in 2015. And I was like, I remember this is what I liked about Philly,
Wow.
right? So it kind of came full circle in a sense. And
Mhm.
so when I was here, I had 3 days to figure out, what am I going to do if I want to stay here in Philadelphia. And at that point, I'm a spiritual person, so I'm always asking the universe for direction and guidance to open my eyes and ears, so I can utilize my intuition and my senses, right?
Yeah.
And this was the place. He said this was the place after visiting 5 other cities: New Orleans, Dallas.
Wow.
Uh, I went to so many different cities, and it was finally this place. And at that point in time, I had 3 days before I had to leave to go back to LA. So I woke up one Sunday morning, and the spirit said, start looking online for jobs. So I went online and started looking for like the top tier of like fashion,
Mm.
styling, retail opportunities in Philly, because I knew there was a place that I was skilled in. I have
Mhm.
so much experience in that space, and I knew it would be an easy way for me to gain employment. And so I went through a couple of interviews. None of them panned out. Um, I reached out to a company called Henry Davis in Rittenhouse Square, and I did a cold call like on a Monday. I cold called this guy,
Oh my gosh.
and I was like, you guys hiring? And he was like, well, tell me a little bit more about yourself. So I go and I tell my story about my experience, not my situation, because I've learned in the past, whenever I told an employer that I'm homeless and I really need work, they never hired me,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I believe is something that we lack in this space of I guess in employment for companies,
Mhm.
right? The empathy part. If you have a person who's skilled enough and have the background but needs that help
Yeah.
to get on their feet, why not?
Well, it's the perception
The
of being homeless, right?
Right,
It's the stigma attached to it
right,
that I think prevents that.
yeah. But here's the thing: I never looked like it.
Right.
I've always embraced expressing myself through style and upkeep,
Mhm.
grooming. That's something I learned as a kid, and it's been with me since a kid. So I get to have this conversation with this gentleman, and he's like, "Well, come in and let's do an interview. Let's have a conversation."
Mhm.
So I had one good suit on me that I packed with me during these travels. And it got to a point where the suit had a hole in the crotch, the armpits under the sleeve was unraveling. I used to have to take my razor and like take all the like pebbles and
Uh-huh.
the, the little the little hairs off the fabric because it balls up a little bit,
Mhm.
and I had to stitch up the hole in my crotch. Um,
Oh my
this,
gosh.
this is interesting. So it was a tailored suit, so it fit still great for me. It looks great.
Mhm.
So I go in and I have this interview. So when I walk through the door, you know, um, I'm cooler than a polar bear toenails. Like I got this, right?
Got it.
But I'm sweating on the inside because here I am having a conversation with a custom clothier, something that I've never done before in my life, in my career, of just being strictly custom.
Mhm.
And so when I see this guy, like he's custom from head to toe, basically. And I walk in, the guy compliments me on my outfit. And I'm like, okay, I got this, right?
Yeah.
So we sit down, we have a conversation. At the end of the conversation, he then folds up my resume and put it in his pocket. And I'm like, why did he just fold up my resume and put it in his pocket? And as he's doing this, he's like, I'll introduce you to the owner of the company, and we'll get you more acquainted. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, okay, here we go again. Like,
Mm.
ah, right? Because I'm going off of the action of him putting my resume in his pocket.
Mhm.
And for me, I used to be a manager at retail stores, and I never folded up somebody's resume and said, "Hey, I'll be back in contact with you," and actually follow through with it. So I felt like I was not necessarily defeated, but I was like, man, here's another loss,
Mm.
right? So I end up flying back to LA. And when I get to LA, I'm staying in Airbnbs at this point. There's the rooms I was staying in, like I say, it's a hostel uh, Airbnb. So there's like 6 bunk beds in one room. So
Oh,
this is not in a community bathroom, right? So this is how I'm living out of a suitcase with like clothes and other things in a storage container, which is a 5x5,
wow.
right?
Wow.
And that's interesting too, because there was a point in time where I had to sleep inside of that 5x5
Mm.
storage because I just didn't have money to get any housing at all.
Mhm.
Um, so that's the transition. So during this transition, um, I get back to Los Angeles, and a few days later, the guy give me a call, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to introduce you to X, Y, and Z." So we have a few phone calls. We have like 4 phone calls. I spoke to like 3 different people, like a
Mhm.
sales. I spoke to a sales manager. I spoke to the owner. I spoke to the other image consultant that was there, and they ended up flying me from Los Angeles to Philadelphia. I've never been flown anywhere for an interview by a company,
I
yet
love it.
alone even a company flying me somewhere for a convention or training, nothing. So here I am, homeless
Mhm.
and getting flown.
Yeah.
Delta Airlines, right? While being
That's
home.
just anything is possible at that point,
At that
right?
point, I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, this could be a thing,
Yeah.
right? So with this being said, I get to Philly, and I start saying Philly because people start noticing me saying Philadelphia. They're like, "You're not from here." I was like,
Yeah.
"Got to
Gotta
change
say
that.
Philly. Gotta say Philly.
I should change
Yeah.
it." So I get here and I have a conversation with them, and we have a great interview. We go through the whole process, and I fly back to Los Angeles, and he gives me a call back, and he's like, "We would like to offer you a position."
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, a position in my head, right?
Yeah.
And he said, but it's 100% commission.
Oh.
Ah,
Oh.
the dagger,
Yeah.
the dagger, right?
Oh.
And it brought it brought a it brought a it brought a sense of like there's there's no way that I'm gonna be able to survive anywhere off of 100% commission.
Mhm.
Like there's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way. So luckily for me, I won't even say lucky for me. I'm blessed enough that I'm educated. I went to college. I have a couple of degrees. I know a little bit about negotiation. So I negotiated with this guy, and I end up negotiating the $65,000 salary on a 6-month draw.
Nice. Nice.
Right.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like this is it. I've never made this amount of money in my life anyway. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is it. I am about to bounce back like
Mhm.
never before. Like never before. And I seen the future. I was like, yes, there's so much things I have to do. I have to build my credit back up because I've been homeless for so long and didn't have money. And so like all these different things, I'm planning. So I get here, and I'm selling these custom suits.
Mhm.
And I'm doing okay being new to Philly because let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is not really a nice place, and it's
It's a
not a very
little hard. It's a little hard. I mean, I'm from New Jersey, right across the bridge, but I have an office in Philadelphia, and it's
yeah,
hard to just get in there.
crack the code.
Right?
It's hard to
Yeah,
crack the code.
yeah, for sure.
Due to the fact of it's like no new friends. People are skeptical about new people, especially
Mhm.
new people who are not from this area.
Yeah.
And it's a blue collar place, and they're all about show me your grit, show me what you got, prove yourself, and
Mhm.
all of these different things. And in a sense, I'm like, well, all right, that's your culture, and that's nothing wrong with it
Yeah.
in a sense, but it is, right? Because you don't know who a person is and what they can probably do for you if you keep shutting people out that you don't know and
Right.
don't acquire the time to invest to get to know somebody.
Right.
Because they could be a huge resource and a life-changing person for you.
Oh, I've met a billionaire who dresses so badly. I mean, from Birkenstocks to ripped jeans to horrible looking t-shirts. I mean, they're probably expensive, but he looks a mess. A mess. And the
Yeah,
first time we had coffee, I thought, "Oh my gosh. I, what does this guy do? He's a mess."
right.
And it was very hard for me to put aside the visual from what someone introduced him to me as.
Hmm,
Like, this doesn't go together.
right.
And then, of course, I got to know him and quickly realized he was a surfer like me, and he was not about to get dressed up to impress somebody, and he also did it because he was very recognizable person in the community,
Hmm,
and it helped him blend in
good. And
and
that's
not be noticed.
and that's the beauty of like fashion and style of
Yeah,
clothes.
yeah.
It's a it's a costume basically, and
Mhm,
you can change and transform to anybody you want to be. You can hide or you can stand out. You can be bold or you can not. Like it's it's all about intention,
mm,
and that's what a lot of people seem to get because sometimes people believe, oh well, I don't believe this because it's so shallow of a person to perceive themselves to be so right.
mhm,
But at the same time, I use it for confidence and
mhm.
opportunities because I'm not a billionaire. I'm
Yeah,
walking towards being a billionaire. So that means I have to put my best collar forward
yeah,
in this sense,
yeah.
right? In order to get to that level for opportunities.
Yeah, and if that
Um,
gives you the energy and the confidence like it does me,
right.
um, I remember I don't know if you've ever heard this, about Marilyn Monroe. She used to be able to turn it on and off,
Yeah.
and for her, it was like an energy thing,
Hmm.
and she once said to a friend, "I can walk down the street and nobody will see me, or I can walk down the street and everybody sees me."
Right.
And the friend was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Watch." And she demonstrated the energy of your vibration being on and open or
Hmm.
being off and closed.
Yep.
And she was in the exact same outfit, same hair, same makeup, everything. And I thought to myself, that's what confidence does for you.
Right.
It makes you that vibrant. And I'm going to tell a quick story about how I first noticed you at a networking Chamber of Commerce event. And I almost forgot about it. But you walked in and you had a lighter blue suit on, no tie, just a shirt, and great shoes, and you walked into this sea of 100 business people, men and women, in boring colors, not standing out at all, and you walked in through my field of vision. I was like, oh, who is that? I got to go talk to him immediately. I didn't know who you were, what you did, but it was the energy of confidence and the energy of standing out.
Yeah. I
So
remember that day.
powerful. So
Well, thank
powerful.
you. I appreciate that. I
You're
remember
welcome.
that day because it was my first time at that event with those
Mm,
people.
mhm,
Like I met a few people like online previously, like Cooper. Like I met
mhm.
him, and there was somebody else. There was a few other people that I met, but I knew no one
Yeah. Me
basically outside
neither.
of that.
Me
And I was
neither.
like, I'm going in here and I'm doing my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so good. So good.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And that's what I believe provided me the opportunity to even negotiate this opportunity
Mm,
for myself.
yeah.
Right. So I get in and I'm really trying to network with people, and I'm going to different places, and I'm like, man, how am I going to sell these suits? Because these suits were like anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000,
Mm,
average is what I
yeah.
was what I was selling at that point. So my first couple of months, I think I did about 15,000 in suits,
Mhm.
which is not bad of not having a network here.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, hey, okay, let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well, 5 months in, guess what comes? The pandemic.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's inconvenient.
Yeah, right? Just like the
Yeah.
motorcycle wreck, 5
Mhm.
months when I was working for another company in LA.
Mm.
And now I'm dealing with anxiety and all these other emotions from what I experienced of being homeless,
Of course.
right? And I'm like, man, not again. Like again?
Mhm.
Like what is my life at this point? Like what am I doing? Because it was a lot of things that I went through, psychologically during my space of being homeless.
Yeah.
And there's points where I attempted suicide twice
Ugh.
because I didn't know how my life was going.
Mm.
And you come from a place where being successful, having a brand new condo in the midtown of a city and driving a
Mhm.
Mercedes Benz and doing all these different things, right? The luxury life. And then
Yeah.
you go to a space where you have nothing at all. And now you find an opportunity that's going to propel you to a new
Mhm.
level. And then here we come again to get
Yeah.
knocked down once again.
Yeah.
And so I dealt with that situation of being still homeless because I was still renting out Airbnbs in Philly while I was still working because my credit was shot. I couldn't get a
Mm.
place to live. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so with that being said, there was during the time of me working with this custom boutique shop, I used to think about creative collaborations to foster relationships within the community of other businesses. So there
Mm.
was there was a gentleman by the name of Stephen Jameson who owns Blue Soul Shoes in Rittenhouse. They're custom, they're handmade, hand painted, um, and I tried to create something between us at one point in time, and it didn't pan out due to unforeseen situations. But I reached out to him to see if I could work part time, during the pandemic, and
Mhm.
so I was making like $1,000 a month. That's all I was making during the pandemic because
Mm.
the previous job they went through the PPP process, but I was only making $7.25 at that
Oh.
point.
Oh.
Living in Airbnb, 725, not a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure it out, right? I've had to like apply for government assistance, being able to get food and things like that. So this
Yeah.
whole process, right? And then I was working for him making $1,000 a week. Um, at that point in time, within like my first month, there was a referral that came in for me
Mhm.
through a gentleman that I worked with previously of getting custom suits. He introduced me to his friend, which is a doctor out of
Mhm.
Baltimore. And
Wow.
so we had a consultation. We went, We went through that process, and the guy had, this was during the pandemic. The guy had a budget of $15,000 to work with me. I was like, okay, let's get to work. So
Yeah.
we do a complete, he's my first client, right? Outside of me working for the boutique shop.
Hmm.
And so I work with him. We do a complete transformation. I mean, from undergarments, socks, to custom suits, custom shirts, ready to wear shirts, shoes, everything, the whole gambit, the whole gambit.
Beautiful.
And at that point, I was like, I made $700 in like 3 hours
Hmm.
just by taking somebody shopping,
Yeah.
right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I can probably do this for real, like on my own. And so I thought about that and processed it. And little do you know, across my feed on my social media, there was an entrepreneurship hackathon that was hosted by the city of Philadelphia, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health
Hmm.
for emerging entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Um, right. So I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have anything. Now, keep in mind, it was 24 hours to submit this application because when I came across it, it was right on time. It wasn't late. It was right on time. Right.
Okay.
So I had 24 hours to submit this application. And I was like, I can just be an image consultant and just do what I've been doing for this company. I'll just do that. And so I filled it out, boom, and I submitted it at 10 a.m. at the deadline time, basically the next
Okay.
day, right? It was the wrong application.
Uh-oh.
So I contacted the support center and let them know. I was like, listen, I submitted the wrong application. Is it possible for you to grace me with another opportunity to complete? And they were like, sure. I was like, yes.
Nice.
So I resubmit the application. 24 hours later, they contact me and inform me that I was a finalist. So at that
Huh.
point, they were like, oh, you have to do a presentation in front of 3 judges. And I'm like, uh, a presentation?
I
I mean,
can do that.
I can, but I don't have one right now. And
Uh-huh.
it's due in 24 hours.
Yep.
And so I was like, all right, it's time to kick this all-nighter college experience, you
Yeah.
know, in overdrive. So I had to really think about what was my approach. And my approach to developing this was taking consideration of the point in time where people were suffering from anxiety, depression,
Mm.
unemployment. At that point in time, it was 54% of adults that was experiencing depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
unemployment rate was like I think it was like 5.3 or 4.3, somewhere in there
Mhm.
at that time. And so, the spirit was telling me, empower the people. It's about humanity. How
Yeah.
can we impact the people? And so at that point in time when I was putting together, I was putting that into place. So my background is in psychology, behavioral science and ethics. And I used to be a job coach. I was an employment specialist for the federal government during the Obama administration. I was also a facilitator. I was an on-site coordinator for people with behavioral disabilities. So I was always in this space,
Yeah.
as well as retail too, like retail
And so you
psychology.
always had that front of the room possibility,
Right.
right? Where you could speak to other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, being an entertainer, I'm on
Yeah.
stage in front of thousands of people, so it's not an issue to get up and talk. Like it's organically my thing, right? That's one part of my purposes, and I understood that, and that's one
Yeah.
thing that I like to highlight. It's about tenacity of purpose through it all in life, and so the time came for me to do this all nighter, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna create this based off of psychology in the
Mhm.
ways to impact people and companies, right? For their employer branding, for their development, employer development, like all
Yeah.
these different things so they can feed into the people, because the people is the number one asset, in my opinion. And then through my
Yeah.
experience of
Yeah.
being in leadership, invest into the people, pour into the people, not
Yeah.
just logistically of what you want to train them for the job, but can you really pour into the people to help them as individuals to become
Yes.
better, right?
Yes.
Boosting their vitality and confidence themselves, that then plays an impact on not only their personal life, but also in the work life.
Oh
And
my God.
so I kept this concept. So I created this concept in this PowerPoint. So I go in the next day and I give this presentation. So there was 17 of us,
Mm.
right? We're all competing for $10,000.
Wow.
Yeah, this would be great for me. I'm like don't have money, still
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
not really on my feet. I could really use this $10,000 to boost my life and others, right? So I go on, I give my presentation. At the end of the presentation, the judges were blown away. They were like, "You really took time and thought this through about your impact of your company
Yeah. All
and
last
idea."
night. All last night I did
Yeah,
that.
I cooked this up. I cooked this up last night, by the way.
Yeah.
But the idea has been embedded forever.
Right. Right.
It was just the opportunity for me to cook in a
Yeah.
sense, right? Let me put these ingredients together and let me make something. Let me
Mhm.
feed the people. And I was able to do so. And at the end of that process, I was contacted 3 days later and I was a runner up and I was
Okay.
awarded a couple of grand to start my business. And
Okay.
basically, I used all of that to make sure I did all the proper documentation and paperwork to get, to get
Nice.
my business solidified, right?
Yeah.
But there was no money left over to do anything else. I had to buy equipment because we were
Oh, the
virtual.
story of entrepreneurship right there.
Talk about it. Needed a laptop, needed camera, needed lights,
Yeah.
needed all this stuff, and it added up quick, and the money
Yeah.
was gone. Like it was gone.
Mhm.
Um, but it provided me that opportunity to get it lifted off the ground and utilize that award-winning entrepreneur as a foundation
Yeah.
to attract people.
Beautiful.
And for me, at that point, I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And I was like, well, maybe I'll just start partnering with or collaborating with different retail stores um, as like an external stylist. So
Mm.
what I was able to do during the pandemic, and this is all grassroots bootstrap. I would walk into retail stores, ask to speak to managers, and ask them if they ever worked with an external stylist to come in, where bring clients in, and then they pay me a commission of whatever the sales are with my
Mhm.
clients. I was doing it, and I ended up landing about 4 of those opportunities.
Amazing.
Now, listen to this one. So when I was homeless in LA, I went to Ralph Lauren on Rodeo Drive
Mhm.
for a job opportunity. Suited up, and this goes back to what I said earlier. I let the guy know that I was homeless and
Mhm.
I really needed a job. And by the end of the interview, he said, it's not a place for you, but at least you wore a tie. Those were his words to me.
Wow.
I still remember that the office I was in. I remember what this guy looked like because it was so heartbreaking to hear that
Yeah.
at that point for me.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I go to Ralph Lauren in King of Prussia Mall,
Mhm.
and I spoke to the manager there, the store manager there, about an external stylist. And long story short, I was the first external stylist for Ralph Lauren in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
full circle.
Yeah.
So you're not, Ralph Lauren's not paying me as an employee. Now you're paying me to bring clients to you. And that was another mark of anything is possible. Just go out and ask questions
Yeah.
and just go. Don't be
Well,
afraid.
I think there's a couple things, that I see, from the confidence, but there's also a belief in the value of what you're doing and the service that you're providing, which means you value yourself. You
Yeah.
never let those external circumstances affect your inner world. I mean, you did. You did have negative thoughts. You did have negative emotions.
Yeah.
But when it came time to do for yourself, you were able to put on that other persona, that really, that confident, that secure, I know the value of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's not fake it till you make it.
No.
That's a side of you. And we all have so many different sides to us.
Yes.
And it's really important. I think style is really important. I think the way we present ourselves is really important. Um, and even in this virtual world, you
Yes.
know, many days I have shorts on with, a top or a sweater, or I have shorts and flip-flops on today, but I make sure that the hair's done, the makeup's done, the right glasses, we're both into glasses. Um, and I think that shows that you care about yourself, that you're valuable to you. So I just want to commend you on that
Well, thank
aspect
you.
of it. It's really inspirational. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and your ideal client. Who's that person that you would love to meet and be introduced to?
Yeah. I want to backpack on what you just stated.
Mhm.
Being important the way you present yourself. It's
Yeah,
not only important. The reason why it's important. Let's talk about it because some people don't
sure.
understand why it's important. So when you talk about the world of fashion psychology, you have to think about the emotions that we all hold, right? And these emotions come out externally, the way we
Mm,
present ourselves. So there's almost a sense of like reverse psychology if we can empower ourselves in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So it's not really dressing the way we feel, but we can dress the way we want to feel by putting on certain colors because
yeah,
certain colors hold different frequencies and wavelengths. This
yeah,
is this is so much in depth, like, but
yeah,
also being able to for like personal and cultural identity as well. The other one is self-image, the confidence part, understanding the cognitive, behavioral, and the emotional factors that go into the way that you present yourself. It's a lot deeper than people may believe it to
mm,
be because a lot of people even suffer from past trauma as kids, right? From if somebody told you you didn't look right in certain colors or clothing, jackets, pants, skirts, whatever the case may be, we deterred away from it. It was like, no, I'm never wearing it again, right? And it's like,
but we've all had that that look or that outfit or that pair of jeans or that leather jacket that you put it on and you felt like a rock star, or you felt cool, or
exactly,
you felt polished, whatever it is for you.
right?
We all have had those items in our closet.
Yes,
And I think, well, as I've gotten older, I only want those items in my closet. Let's get rid of everything else,
right,
right?
exactly, and that creates new energy for you as well.
Yeah,
So you can
yeah.
really you can shift your energy and even the trajectory of your life by changing what you wear. It's essential. Thanks to
Mhm.
Adam and Eve, listen, we weren't clothes.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah,
wearing clothes. There's a way around it at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, but you may suffer consequences. But anyway, uh, but the thing for me is this: is helping individuals and organizations understand the well-being piece that
Mm,
comes with branding from a sartorial standpoint. And for
yeah.
those who don't know what sartorial means, it just means clothing, garments, tailored, things like that. Just being able to understand what to wear and how simple it can be to create a wardrobe for yourself that represents who you are, no matter what facets. Because I have so many different styles because I
Mhm.
embrace my different personalities.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know, there's my rock star, there's my hip hop guy, there's my business guy, there's my sport casual guy, there's my festival guy. There's all these different pieces, but
Yeah.
knowing how to harness those and foster those styles is important. So for me, what I've been able to come to at this point, because there's been a shift for me, and I think it's
Mm,
important for people to know when when trying to identify who you are and present yourself to society, it can be a challenge. And it was a challenge for me because I was trying to figure out, how can I introduce myself in a way that's
mm,
provocative and persuasive,
mm.
that creates conversations, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I went through the phase of, I'm an image consultant, I'm a personal stylist, I'm a sartorial brand specialist. And like slowly I start to gain, especially the sartorial brand specialist. People are like, what is that?
Huh? What's that?
And
Yeah,
I
it's
was
like
like,
when I tell people I'm a eudaimonologist, they're like, "What?"
what?
And I
Right?
well, I remember
And
a
it's like,
branding person years
and it's like,
ago told me, "Don't call yourself that because nobody knows what it is." And I
right,
said, "Exactly."
right, right, right. And that's why I shifted to the fashion psychologist, because now it
Yeah.
creates that interest. And they're like,
Mhm,
tell me more.
mhm,
That's the word that they use. They're like, wow, tell me more.
mhm,
Everybody that I started using this maybe like 2 weeks ago. I went to the Human Resource Delaware Valley Human HR Person of the Year Award event. It's my
mhm.
first time going, and I went in. I had on this rose pink jacket with some cobalt gray pants, black shoes, and a white shirt, and these glasses. And people came to me. I didn't
Yeah,
have to go to nobody.
yeah, you do that. You
They
do that.
they came to me and they were like, I love your style. I love your glasses. I was like, thank you very much. Oh, you are so warm. You're so welcome. You feel so, like it's
Uh-huh.
something about you. And I'm like, well, thanks. But being able to become that attraction
Yeah.
is is my it what's the word I want to use? It was my intention,
Mhm.
is to attract people versus chase people.
Yeah,
And that's something I've learned from Abraham Hicks as well. It's like, how do you become that law of attraction? How can you become it though? How can
yeah.
you embrace it? And that's what I started utilizing. So from that point, that's the space I've been targeting for about a year and a half, is to get in this
Mhm.
HR space, because I'm in that training and development space, in
Right,
well-being space. And this
right.
so this is going into your answer of your question, is being in the space of HR, having those conversations, also working with workforce development
Mhm,
organizations or people in those spaces. Also work with nonprofit organizations that provide that to communities that's in the
mhm.
same workforce development space, to help empower people. And honestly, I believe that's where my passion really lies, is really working with the people who are not yet there, but I
Mm,
can help elevate them there, because
yeah,
I was at the bottom at one point in time in my life, and I've been able to grow based
yeah.
on the way that I've just presented myself and just educated all these different things. So
Well,
that's the real
there's
passion.
yeah, there's a thing so I'm working on my first solo book, and it's called The Charisma Code.
Mm,
And the reason being, for years, I've been a business coach, and people asked, well, how do you do that? How do you attract people? How do you make eye contact? How do you have conversations with all these people? How do you, and I thought, how do I do that?
how do you do
And
it?
I started breaking it down, and it's a combination of body language and eye contact and the way you treat people and the way you make people feel. And you
Right.
have it 110%. All 12 of my modules, you possess skills and qualities in all of those modules. And
Thank
it
you.
you're welcome. And it took me 2 years to learn myself
Yeah.
so that I could teach that to other people, and it's
Mm.
exactly what you're doing with yourself, and I just love it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It goes back to tenacity of purpose once again.
Mhm.
Despite this, you know, even though I was going through the things that I went through, it was a challenge, but
Yeah.
I also knew it was a purpose for it as well
Yeah.
because it allowed me to develop into a different person mentally, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally,
Yeah.
physically, of going through these phases of homelessness. Um, it showed me a better sense of gratitude and appreciation
Mhm.
for people and and the things that I have, and living in the present versus the past or the future.
Yes.
Because we
Yeah.
can't we can't dictate what happens in the next 5 minutes. We don't know. Anything can happen.
Mhm.
I'm a living witness. Anything can happen
Yeah.
at any
Same.
given time.
Same. Same. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for having this conversation and sharing your story and your journey
Thank you
with
for
my
having me.
listeners. How can those who want to get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be on
Of
your show. It's,
course.
it's an honor to be able to be here and to share my story with the world, basically. And I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for the relationship, and I'm grateful for you going out and telling people about me. Like,
Mhm.
so I just want you to know that I truly appreciate you. I really
Oh,
do.
thank
Um,
you.
Especially allowing me into your world as a stranger. So
Well,
the best.
I found you. I found you. I am going to take credit for that, but it was all because of the image and the style that you had that day. So, um, when one person witnesses that in another,
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for noticing it. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
Um, so the same way you found the way you found me, people can find me heavily on LinkedIn. Gregory Jerome. That's GregoryJerome. That's where I kind of live in the
Beautiful.
space of the professional world. But if people just want to know me organically, I'm on Instagram as well. Same name, Gregory Jerome. And that's where you get the full paradigm and spectrum of me, of like
Yes.
everything that I do.
All those
Um,
good pictures.
yeah, like some people think, oh, you should just do fashion because you're. I'm like, no, man, but that's not me. Like I'm so much more, and I
Yeah.
think people should know who I am.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn is the number one space where I'm on, where I'm truly educating and connecting people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, if anybody is watching or tuning in later on any of the other platforms, the podcast, YouTube, Facebook, my community, please just let me know and I'll make a personal introduction to Gregory.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you again, my friend.
thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.